This video is on question 5 of the 2012 TSA paper, and here we're asked which option is an assumption that underlies the argument. And this is the passage that we're given. The author starts by saying that in the UK, 45% of the workforce is female. However, the percentage of women in senior positions is much lower than this. And the author says that this is unfair to women. And not only is it unfair to women, but according to the author, it's bad for the economy, because those who are promoted to senior positions may not be the best because of this. The author writes that women might be discouraged from seeking promotion because employers often need senior employees to do long and flexible hours. Moreover, women may also be perceived as being unwilling to subordinate the demands of family to the demands of the job. And the author concludes that employers must be urged to offer shorter and more flexible working hours. So that's the passage we're given. And what are we dealing with here? Well, the author first lays out a problem, and we might regard the first couple of sentences as the author laying out a problem, namely that there aren't many women in senior positions. This is both unfair and bad economically. And then the author gives a couple of reasons, sentences 3 and 4, for a solution, sentence 5. And you might recall, if you've seen any video on the type of question where we're asked which option best expresses the conclusion of a passage, that when we have a problem, a fact and reason, or rather when we have a problem, a set of facts or reasons, and a solution, the conclusion is the solution. And so here, sentence 5 is the conclusion. So with that in mind, let's try and break this passage down so we have a better sense of what's being said here. So here I've broken up the passage into the problem that the writer addresses and the solution that they propose along with the reasons for the solution. And note that this is very rough. For example, this, that is unfair to women to have less of them in senior positions, could be regarded as a reason for the conclusion. However, these two reasons are more direct, so I've attached the reason symbol to them. In any case, what we're trying to do here is to gain a clearer understanding of what the passage is saying. And this way of looking at things should help, even if it's only one way to do so. So what is the author saying in the first couple of sentences? Well, they are essentially saying that lack of females in senior positions, senior economic positions, is a problem. And what is the author saying in conclusion? Well, they are saying that shorter and more flexible hours should be offered. And these are the reasons they provide in support of the solution. So now we've got a basic understanding of what the passage is saying, and this should be useful when we look at the options, which is what we're going to do now. So here we have our 5 options, and here we have our passage, or what it's basically saying. So let's go through each option and see which is an assumption underlying this argument in the passage. Option A says that most women aren't interested in seeking promotion. Well, if the author thought this, then they probably wouldn't think that lack of females in senior positions is a problem. However, they do think this is a problem, and so they probably don't think this. In fact, they seem to think the opposite of option A, and so A can't be an assumption. What about option B? This says that men wouldn't object to the promotion of more women to senior positions. Now, the author isn't concerned whether men would object to the promotion of more women. Regardless of this, they're still going to propose that shorter and more flexible hours should be offered, and so option B is irrelevant. The author doesn't rely on it as an assumption. Now looking at option C, this says that women would be better leaders than men if they were promoted to senior positions, rather than men being promoted to senior positions. Well, if we take a look back at the passage, we'll see that the author says that those promoted to senior positions, so currently mostly men, may not be the best. However, the author doesn't say that they're definitely not the best. And so the author doesn't seem to be assuming that women would definitely be better leaders than men, which is what option C is saying. So option C is too strong. What about option D? This says that women are no less likely than men to have the abilities that are needed for senior positions. Well, if this is the case, then lack of females in senior positions really is a problem. And given the circumstances of women, it might be best to offer short and more flexible hours. So this seems like a plausible candidate as the assumption. And we can check that it's an assumption by applying the not test. We can say that women are less likely than men to have the abilities needed for senior positions. Well, then this seems less of a problem, and the solution doesn't seem as good. And when we look back at the passage, the author would agree. because they say that lack of women in senior positions is bad for the economy. This is a reason why it is a problem, according to the author. So if we negate D, if we say women are less likely than men to have the abilities needed for senior positions, it seems that the argument falls apart. And so D passes the not test, and it's an assumption of this argument. So that just leaves option E as the final option to rule out. This says that working hours would be more flexible if employers promoted more women to senior positions. If we look at the passage again, we'll see that the author says that it's more flexible hours which are needed to encourage women to pursue promotion. And so the author is not saying that this is needed for that promotions are needed for more flexible hours. Rather, they're saying that that is needed for this, that more flexible hours are needed for women to be promoted. And so E actually seems to be the opposite of what the writer thinks. And that leaves option D as the correct option.